I'm working on a bigger video that I thought I'd have out like last week. Unfortunately, the script writing stage is giving me disproportionate difficulty, so this week, to get something out, I'm gonna be making a small dissertation on the color-working Castlevania Nocturne to all y'all, because I watched that on Friday the 13th this fine spooky month. Spoilers, obviously, but specifically, I am not arranging my thoughts linearly. You will get no incremental building to the bigger late game spoilers. They can come at any moment. Colors are by far some of my favorite things to see being used well and played around with, and even if the colors weren't expertly planned and were used for nothing except as a way to differentiate the characters, I still love just how much more colorful Nocturne is compared to Castlevania the First. Something that especially made my brain go absolutely burr the first time around is the weird, interesting thing they did with the color pink. How Annette says Edouard called her soul pink, but her favorite color was always green, the opposite, and it zooms in on him in his fancy green opera coat, which you cannot help but relate back to the tiny jewels on Ulrox's earrings, and how they alternate between pink and green. All three of them have the New World in common. All three of them come from horribly damaged communities, and while the girl who refuses to submit and discovers her command over magic as a result carries the color pink in her soul, the boy who uses smooth deception and a calm demeanor as his main tool in the liberation of his community is commonly wreathed in greens, but the creature older and more weathered than them both, with no soul and no mission and no community left, enshrines both colors in gold jewelry and dresses in deep saturated purples, as if he understands both those things to be important, so important, but he only has his pride and his history left of all that he used to have and hold dear. But the pink doesn't stop here. Think pink, my friends, because Drolta's primary color is this neon hot pink that only poisonous things are in nature, while Maria's primary color is a light, soft pastel pink. Drolta willingly gave herself over to Erzsébet centuries ago, while Maria was unknowingly primed as an ideal sacrifice for her, and is only saved by her mother, who wears black from the first moment of the series because she was always marked for death. And the abbot, too, is defined by black, because faith without works is dead. This is also why, even though Mizrak wears the same black uniform as the other soldiers, the symbol of his faith emblazoned across his chest is white, for it is alive. And then still, so many of his shots focus on the rich maroon of his absolutely gorgeous eyes. You are regularly drawn away from the black he chooses to put on by the harmonious colors his true body is made of, and hammered home by the fact that he is one of the only characters we ever see in a state of undress. And who could it be that we see him with in that scene where he's covering up all his pretty colors, and what could they be wearing still? What could they have chosen not to take off? What jewelry might they be wearing? Curious. You don't say. It's almost like, without his faith and his mission and his devotion to a living god through a dead man, Mizrak is alone, but without his ostentatious persona and vampiric menace and regality, Ulrox still has the vestiges of what he has lost forever. Interesting! Drolta and Maria aren't the only ones for whom saturation matters. Not only can Edouard no longer be green after he is transformed because he can never be of that same service to his old community, as if to add insult to injury, his previously pastel sky blue eyes are now this unnatural electric blue, which lines up really well with how the neon saturation that defines the pinks in Drolta's color palette also defines the greens in Ulrox's color palette. Unnatural creatures do not get to have natural colors. Yes, even if you really like them. Yes, even Alucard! Alucard is a balance of stark white and colorless black with two amber eyes to anchor him to the world around him. This same goldenness is present in the magic Maria and Annette use, and the markings on Edouard. His two small graces in his new existence are to take the form of an angel and to be marked with the same colors that mark the magic and the faith which stands opposed to all that binds him. Maria sees nothing of value in the church because her faith lies in herself and her her cause and those who support her, and the church is an institution that upholds oppression. Annette adorns herself in gold and glows amber as she calls on her canonically divine magic, a magic of her ancestors and her community's religious practices which go against the white man's god. Edouard, even in the form of a hell beast, touches other people's souls with his voice, which is why the vampires, soulless, evil creatures that they are, all hate to hear it so. Then, Alucard appears as a deus ex machina in the final moments of the season, framed by an eclipse halo and devoid of color but for his piercing golden eyes. He is such a different thing than anything else we have seen this season that the established color language must bend to him. God only needed to say, "I am," and Alucard only needed to appear. He himself is all white, and he has been alive for so long that the living on in the face of this relentless world defines him. The sword he uses to kill Drolta, save the main characters' lives, and repel the vampire cronies is white and silver. He is life, and he protects others' lives, yet his coat is black, and he promises immediate death to his foes. Where he has been this entire plot, we don't know. When all of this dying was happening, where was he? Where was this power beneath the black? Then finally, he asks in his soft voice, "I hope I'm not too late." And he turns to properly face us, and we see for certain that his eyes are the color of devotion and magic and sunlight. Sunlight! Speaking of sunlight, if I might detour from colors, when Erzsébet has transformed into a Thundercat, she says she despises the sunlight because it is worshipped and beloved by these inferior humans, and restricts the power of vampires, the superior beings. Now, we know that vampires are only stunned by crosses because the geometry messes with their eyes and befuddles their predator brains, so you would think the Christian God has almost nothing to do with the repelling of vampires. However, if something is properly holy and consecrated, neither demons nor vampires can touch it without consequence. The Belmont Whip is consecrated and has been for hundreds of years. That holy water Sypha freezes does uniquely damage the night creatures. However, vampires can enter the church in Nocturne, and hellbeasts could enter the church in that town that killed Dracula's wife that I don't care to remember the name of. The hellbeast says that it can do this because that church is not a house of God, and the things the priest does makes God puke. The abbot welcomes Erzsébet and her ilk in as messiahs and desecrates his own church with a machine from hell. These are sacrilegious places run by people who do not truly follow the faith either willfully or in blind cognitive dissonance. Now, it is shown in Nocturne that Vaublanc is very anti-spells on the plantation, despite these protective spells and spiritual songs having nothing to do with the Christian God which he so fears. He cannot escape the cage of crosses that Annette makes for him, but Annette definitively does not follow the Christian God. Yet he is burned by these crosses when he tries to touch them, because Annette is descended from a god, and this is that god's material. Because this is a divine act, because Annette and her magic, through devotion to her religion, are holy and consecrated. Therefore, is sunlight only corrosive to vampires because the very concept of sunlight and the sun is sacred to all humans to some degree? Did humanity's collective unconsciousness consecrate sunlight thousands of years ago and continues to this day to do that? And that is why vampires cannot walk in it? 'Cause I think that makes the most sense, actually. And lastly for colors, we have my boy, my beloved, my darling, my second favorite, Richter Belmont, in his most distinctive deep blues, like the ocean we start the show beneath, like the water he stares into and walks through, like the tears he cries. The way, once his magic returns to him, his fire and his ice match his eyes and the colors he wears, because of course they match! This blue is Richter Belmont! His magic is a direct extension of his self. It is his soul, and he dons that pure white headband band he previously tucked away and didn't wish to look at, when he makes the decision to go on living and to choose love and to choose these people and to make them his mission. He chooses to fight against evil instead of hiding from it. He chooses to extend his love and his soul out to these people and whatever cause they support, and because he chooses that, he is more. The screen and the vampires are consumed by blue because he has become more than he was with this choice. His soul burns blue, the second hottest color for fire to burn after white. Of course, his is the only color palette that comes close to being as restrained as Alucard's, because Alucard holds magic and devotion and sunlight in his soul, because as we all know, the eyes are the windows to the soul, and simply lives and lives and lives on and on to carry those things forward to the people with whom he wishes to share magic and devotion and life and death. And he makes this choice again and again and again every new day. Every new year, every new century he lives. He has lived too long to be anything else but this being of magic and devotion and sunlight and life. So too, Richter Belmont carries his love and the love others give him forward and forward and forward wherever it will take him, because yes, water travels the path of least resistance, and yes, it takes the shape of its container, but that is why his choice of who he aligns himself with is so important. He finds people he believes in and he allows them to shape him, to direct him, to have his whole soul. Other characters in Castlevania Nocturne believe in messiahs and gods and power structures and ideologies, but Richter Belmont believes in the people he loves and in the love in his soul. Blue is the color of love! Richter Belmont is made from love and not fear, and he must dispossess his fear of its power if he is ever to truly live. That scene was by far my favorite scene in the entire show, just unequivocally. I think in part because that was the part where I expected Alucard to show up, because when I was looking up the voice actors, I accidentally saw James Callis as Alucard, and I went, oh my gosh, he really does show up. I was hoping he would show up, but he really does show up. He's obviously going to make a big entrance, and so my anticipation of dear beloved Alucard meant that I was very pleasantly surprised by Richter pulling a real magical girl protagonist move and unlocking his magic through the power of love and overcoming your trauma. But did you know that I make these videos through the power of positive reinforcement and fits of passion? Did you also know that I have a Ko-Fi page for those of you who wish not only to give me compliments in comment sections about my pretty voice and how my analysis has contributed positively to your experience on this mortal coil, but who wish to be like Raptorus77 and random NPC Tartaglia Simp Extraordinaire, who hath contributed monies to me and my continued financial stability. I also have little incentives over there, like the Kill Your Darlings Graveyard for scripts where I have way too much to say and I have to cut stuff from for flow. I also am prepping a thing where you can chuck money at me to make screenshot edits of things like this rolling with difficulty paranatural thing I did for fun, or the cover art that I make for the Broadway Nepeta blog because I run that. If you want to catch me announcing when my image edit endeavor goes up, you can subscribe. If I make it to 1,000 subscribers by my birthday, I will give you a hint, I am a Scorpio, then I'll, make a community post where I will take requests, because I don't do requests otherwise. It'll be fun, it'll be a celebration. Okay, that's all from me. Also, I am definitely gonna be making a Castlevania Nocturne AMV to one of the Pretty Cure openings, mark my words. Take care. Not only can Edouard no longer be green after he's transitioned. He's trans, everybody! Trans rights!